Hey everyone, Israel coming here, and on today's video we're going to be talking about, as you can see, the Forex charts. We're going to be breaking down different currencies and different markets, but we're also going to be talking about how you can make 50 pips in one day. So if this is your first time on today's live stream or one of our videos, my name is Israel from Vintageducation, and we focus on one thing here on the channel. That's showing you how to make profits trading the Forex market. So you should be able to see my charts. Everything should be running perfectly. You should be able to basically see everything about what we're basically going to talk about. We're going to start on one currency. As you can see here, we're talking about the pound against the dollar. Let me just basically just mute this quickly and we should be good to go. All right, so first things first, like I said, if you're your first time here, what we basically do is we do live streams like this where we basically break down the markets, giving you the best opportunity to make money trading the Forex markets. So we're going to go through a couple of different currencies in today's live stream, God willing, as long as there's enough time. If you've got any questions about currencies you want us to basically look at, you can basically put it in the chat box. I'll try and get to those as quickly as possible. And if you've got any questions about just Forex, either way, put them in the chat box. I'll try and answer them as well and hopefully help you out in regards to your Forex journey. All right, so let's basically break down some of the charts. Give me 2 seconds. All right, so what you can see here, this is the pound against the dollar, right? And even before we even do that, let's start with something else. Let's look at another currency. Let's look at the euro. Okay, let's start with the euro. All right, so the EURUSD is a currency you should be able to see right now what's basically happening. So the fact of the matter is, going back to the weekend stream, the stream we did on the weekend, it's in the description box. You can watch it after. Basically what we do on the weekend is we basically break down what we expect the market to do in the coming week, and then basically what we do after that is we basically try and trade those opportunities that we basically kind of planned out in advance. So you can see here the EURUSD. You can see that going back to yesterday's live stream, that's also in the description box for you to watch after. We were basically talking about how the euro for us was looking for a short position basically for this week. Now so far what you can see is from the 6th, which was pretty much the first trading day of the week, that price really didn't do too much. For a lot of the time it was basically just kind of sideways, gradually moving down. And yesterday what we talked about was a potential area to basically see what price did in this particular region here, right? So just let the live newsfeed finish there. For those of you who don't know what it is, that's a live newsfeed. You can get a free trial to the exact live newsfeed I use as well. It's in the description box. But we basically highlighted this area and we said, okay, cool, I want to see what price does in this particular region, if it warrants basically a sell position, right? So this morning, you can see here around 9 a.m, something around that time, and it was close to that time, price basically reached there basically, and you can see that price actually pushed through. But this is a 15-minute chart, as you can see. Okay, right here we're going to look through different time frames as well to give you different insights based on different time frames. That's one of the things we do here. But going down, just to zoom in a little bit, okay, you can see that price this morning, okay, did actually push into this region, okay, pushed up and subsequently went higher. Okay, now this is one thing that you have to get good at doing, and one thing I'll say to you either way is you have to learn to be patient. Now, I didn't say on yesterday's live stream this is a guaranteed trade. That's one thing you need to understand. We will highlight areas and we'll say, okay, cool, let's see what happens. We're not going to trade it. You can do that, okay, and I'd only advise you do those kind of things. For example, like put an order on. An order is basically you tell your broker, let's say for example you drew analysis up like this and you said, okay, cool, I want to see price get to this particular region, right? Okay, the 108 20ish region, and if price comes into this region, you'll tell your broker to basically sell, okay, automatically. Now the fact of the matter is that that can work, but I'd always advise you to do that in like a worst case scenario. For example, you literally have no time to basically look at the charts and stuff like that, because they can be so-so and you never know what's going to happen. If price comes right through like this, then the likelihood is you don't want to take that trade, because it's just literally blowing through and it's showing you right there on the get-go in real time that it's not worth it. Let's say, for example, price comes into the region, there's a little bit of sideways action, and then you want to go short, right? The fact of the matter is that makes sense, but with an order you can't necessarily, for most people anyway, ascertain that, okay, cool, price comes in, wait a couple of hours, wait 20, 30, 40 minutes, however long it's going to be, price doesn't just shoot through and then move down. Okay, now the fact of the matter is brokers aren't necessarily going to be willing and freely giving you those kind of tools, because if you could tell your broker just generally, look, when price comes into this region, I don't want to open the order straight away, wait about 45 minutes, 15 minutes, and if price is still in that area, then I want to take a sell position. Most brokers aren't going to do that because they want to basically have the potential spread fees at a bare minimum locked in. So you basically want to see what happens when price comes in. You can see that price gradually moved in and just subsequently didn't move down. It went straight up, right? So the fact of the matter is, I'm saying all to say, if price came into this region and based on this price action here you went short, that wouldn't have been the worst case scenario. Okay, I wouldn't look at this and say, okay, oh, why did you do that? Okay, maybe you could potentially wait a little bit longer to see more candles forming, all those kind of things, but at the end of the day, all of this stuff, like all of this upwards momentum here, is after the fact. It's all good and dandy saying after the fact, okay, cool, this is what we expect to happen, but the fact of the matter is we don't know. Okay, in real time we don't know what's happening on the market. We have to make snap judgment decisions basically, and I say snap judgment decisions, I don't mean like literally just like in 1 second you've got to make a decision, but what I basically mean is in real time when we don't know what the market's going to do next, we have to make a decision. But so far, okay, let's go to a higher time frame for you to get a better context of what's actually happening. Price has been pushing back, so price has bottomed out right here, okay, so far, okay, just about the 108 region, just below the 108 region, and price has pushed through. Okay, now price, looking left, this was an area previously, the last place where price basically dropped from. Price has taken out that area as well. So all we have to do is, at least for the next 24 hours for me, I'd basically be looking left and saying, okay, cool, like what's price going to do at this particular region? What's price going to do here? Is price going to basically blow through it? If price, and I mentioned this on yesterday's live stream and on the weekend live stream, when you've got a bias, okay, my bias on this is to sell, right? So if price continues to keep moving up, breaching through these areas, at some point you have to turn around and say to yourself, okay, cool, did I get this right? Did I get this wrong? Or another thing you have to be mindful of is the fact that sometimes the price will take a few days as the market basically unfolds before it basically turns around and does exactly what you expect it to do. Last week, certain solid opportunities on like the euro yen, for example, even though we was talking about it pretty much from the beginning of the week, over and over again there was several opportunities, but especially at the end of the week is when the huge drop down actually came into fruition, into motion. Go back and watch our live streams from a few days ago, from last week's worth of trading, and you see exactly what we're talking about. So although you can be nimble, and we talked about this yesterday, a great book to read or to listen to, you can get a free copy of it, Who Moved My Cheese. It's in the description box and in the comment section. It's a great lesson about not focusing just in one way or going in one direction and not being able to change. You have to be ready to make decisions based on different scenarios. Okay, so let's just see what happens over the next 24 hours. I'm going to keep a close eye on this, because this in fact was supposed to be my main like trading currency this week, but it's slowly becoming not the main trading opportunity, funny enough. And that already from the weekend, I had that kind of call, okay, you know what, I'm going to be focusing more on the euro, because I thought, you know what, the euro was actually going to be more likely to move down than anything else, or was more ripe than anything else. Now all of a sudden it's looking like, okay, no, you know what, unless I'm going to start thinking about potentially taking a long position and going that way, if price doesn't start to show me something of some sort of sideways action before moving down, then this may get pushed more to the back burner. Not because it's not moving, but because my analysis on it is one way, and now it's suggesting something completely different. Okay, and especially if other currencies move to the forefront. Okay, so that's just that. What we can do now is, as we do as customarily, we had this area on as a potential. It's basically breached through this area, so there's literally no more point of basically having it on the chart. So let's get rid of this. All right, let's look at a higher time frame, because if prices continue, we've talked about where price is going to go to, right? This is a 4-hour chart now that we're basically looking at. You can see it right here, yeah, 4 hours, and you can see we had this trend line on initially. It's a bit ugly. All right, so we've seen that. We've seen price push back. This was the start of last week when we thought price was going to go up here. Price didn't basically get all of that way. Price came down. Now the fact of the matter is, right now this isn't really a good sign for the sellers, I'll be honest, because price is consolidating and trying to go higher. Where is it trying to go higher? Is price going to try and come up to somewhere like here before trying to push back down? We don't know. But at the same time, like I just said, if we don't see a top somewhere, where's the top going to be? Okay, if price, excuse me, I believe if price starts coming up to these regions, excuse me, I'd probably most likely have basically been ready to switch and say, you know what, it's not going to short this week. Maybe it makes more sense to basically try and get a buy position. But again, going back to even streams we talked about last week, even if the market is going in the opposite direction that you planned, it can still provide solid opportunities for you in the way you think it's going to go. A lot of the time, if you get your long-term momentum right, and because the long-term momentum on this euro seems extremely bearish, it isn't a surprise. It won't be a surprise if one day or 2 days during the week price provides good opportunities on the downside. Okay, so we're going to get into, let's look at the daily. Okay, just to keep it consistent, let's look at the daily chart. Okay, and you can see, let's zoom right into this, because this is significant. Now bear in mind we're only 12 hours into the day, but look at this candle right now. Okay, that is an extremely buyer orientated candle right now. Now this, like I said, we're only halfway through the day, just over, we're 13 hours, about to be 14 hours into the day technically, give or take a couple of hours depending on how your broker basically categorizes a day. But this is a huge candle from a buyer's perspective, and we don't know, like in another 12 hours price could come back to like here, for example, and this could be like a long tail. Okay, that's something to consider. Price, if it wanted to, could come all the way back down and it could be red, and this could just be a long tail, okay, with a body something like this and a tail like this. You never know what's going to happen, but it's important to understand and to basically analyze the markets and basically see what's happening, because these are the kind of things ultimately that will help you make money or help you protect yourself from actually losing money. So keeping a strong eye on this. Even if you look at some of these candles, this candle right here from a daily perspective going back to yesterday, and then obviously seeing this candle next, okay, is more signs that price may be trying to test higher levels. Okay, so again, like I said, I'm going to look over this for maybe like another 12 hours, keep an eye on it and see what it does. If it keeps moving up, then to start, tomorrow's going to be my day off, so there's not going to be any live stream or anything like that, but Thursday we'll pick up from there and basically see what happens. All right, so what currency should we look at next? For those of you who are with me live, if you're watching on a replay, thanks for tuning in. If you want me to analyze markets in real time, you can basically come join me live and we'll basically talk about this in more detail. All right, so the euro, this is the euro. Let's see, let's look at, we can look at cable now. Okay, now this is another one, okay, because in a lot of scenarios we were very bearish centered. Okay, this is another one that looked very ripe. Okay, if you go back to our weekend stream, it's in the description box, like I mentioned, we talked about this in a lot of detail about why it was extremely ripe, looking to go on the downside. Now there's been news, okay, price did look like it was going to move down, but there has been news flooding the market. It's been all over the live news feed today as I've just been looking at the charts, as I've been doing other things, okay, just around, okay, children, wife, all of that kind of things. We've been hearing the live news feed come through talking about there's been positive news in regards to the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. There's sources that are saying that there's likely to be a good piece of like data coming out in regards to him, and obviously ultimately that will be better for the economy than worse for the economy. And because of that, the pound has actually been pushing up based on the back of that strength and just pushing up generally. Because the fact of the matter is, if, for example, if the news came out and it was actually bad for the Prime Minister, then likely that would have an adverse effect on the economy. And even if it's like a minuscule effect, okay, he is obviously going to be replaceable. They would obviously get a new Prime Minister, but it's a bad sign, okay, nonetheless. So this is one we thought was really right, okay. But again, like the euro that we've just talked about today, we've seen a lot of dollar weakness in regards to these currency pairs. Okay, so it's just really about waiting to see what happens on this one as well. But as we go down, this is a daily view, right? As you can see here, let's basically go down and see in some really interesting, let's get some insights, because this is one of the main reasons why I titled this today, how to make 50 pips in one day. And for those of you that came thinking that I was going to talk about that straight away, well, we haven't had to wait too long because we're basically discussing it now, right? This is one of the reasons why I want to do this. So this is a 4 hour, although it's moving up, right? Notice this is what I want you to see. So yesterday, going back to the live stream from the weekend, this is something we was basically talking about. You know what, I expect this market to go down, but one thing I said that was crucial is this area right here. Okay, 122.20 needs to be breached. If this level does not get breached, then it's not going to be a surprise to me if price decides to push up, okay, and start moving closer. This was all off the back of, you can see this on a 4 hour time frame, you can see this on a daily time frame. When you look to the left, okay, I'll show it to you maybe in a second, okay, there is this huge piece of price action there of huge buying activity. And if that's why I kept saying, if price doesn't break this particular region, then there's going to be an issues. And the potential 800 pip drop, this was the whole thing we talked about yesterday. On the weekend, we highlighted a potential 800 pip move on the downside on the pound against the dollar, but this is the key area still to date, basically, that needs to be wiped out. Up until this point, it hasn't been wiped out, right? So let's look at the 4 hour, so you can see this area, or maybe we have to go up to a daily. You can see it here nice and conclusively, right? I was highlighting this on the weekend live stream. Go back and watch it after this live stream. I talked about it yesterday's live stream. This area needs to get breached. Now look what happened. Okay, because this tells a story of what we was basically talking about on yesterday's live stream. If you weren't with us yesterday on the live stream, go back and watch it. It was a powerful live stream, especially considering what's basically happened since. Okay, but look what happened. We was talking about this yesterday on the live stream. When we came into the live stream yesterday, I was highlighting this area right here, saying, look, price consolidated sideways, provided a potential opportunity, okay, decent opportunity for you to get in. Now, as we were finishing the live stream yesterday, price was somewhere around here, basically pushing up back into this region. And I was basically saying that, look, if price isn't going to drop here and price is going to try and retest these areas, then a potential sell position from this area would actually be quite decent, right? But I also kept saying, look, depending on your take profit and on your stop loss, okay, your stop loss is likely going to go up here. And again, go back and watch yesterday's live stream. After this live stream, it will explain all of this stuff in more detail. I was basically highlighting that, look, any trade you take, what I've just basically alluded to already, be careful of this particular region right here. And I was saying, if you have a trade on and your target basically makes you have to go for a longer target because your entry wasn't as good, price may be able to break through as it does, as it is customarily. Price will a lot of the time break through on the downside or break through on the upside, but you have to understand that this makes it less likely. Okay, the lower and lower you put your target, okay, the lower and lower you go down for a target, the less likely it is that it's actually going to pan out. Okay, it's actually going to come into fruition. So I was basically saying the best thing for you to do ideally was to get a good entry if you're going to trade this up here, basically, okay, and have a take profit somewhere higher than the 122.20 region, because this is the area that price seems to not want it to go below, right? So let's go down to a lower time frame, see this all in better detail. and look exactly, and let's see exactly what's happened so far. Now, one thing I'll say is price is up here right now, right? That has no bearing on what happened yesterday. Okay, so ignore pretty much most of this, what's happening so far today. Ignore all of this, because this is irrelevant. Yesterday when we was talking about this, the day before when we was talking about this in the live streams, all of this stuff here is irrelevant because it didn't happen. This was all of the stuff we were looking at, and we're saying, okay, cool, is price, what's price going to be doing in this region? We came in yesterday talking about this area right here as a potential. We talked about it again, if price comes back here, is it going to move down, right? Go back and watch the live stream. We talked about all of this stuff, okay, and it was free for consumption as well, just for the record. Now let's go to a 15-minute and see exactly what this actually looks like, right? So this is the area, okay, that was just basically talking about. Now look what happened. Price pushed off. If I remember correctly, we did a trade scenario, what the risk would be, what the reward would be, right? And was basically talking about where you enter is what's going to make the difference, okay? And generally that is what customarily happens. Now look what happened after that. Price dropped down initially. Price came back exactly to this area, not once but twice. Okay, tested it again. And this is a prime area, okay, prime opportunity for you to get in. Now, look what happened. Disregard that. Look what basically happened, right? But look how quick this is. This is all 15-minute candles, right? So we're talking about, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we've got 6, and we've got 7. And you would have got taken out on this candle right here. That's 8 candles. So you're talking about 2 hours. Okay, 2 hours. Can you see how when you do most of the work up front, okay, on the weekend, when you do most of this stuff before the price gets to that particular region, how it's easy, how much more easier it is, should I say, to get into these kind of trades and the potential opportunity you can get. This is over in 2 hours straight down. Okay, and we're talking about, what did I say yesterday? This was 100 pips. So if this is 100 pips, yeah, if this is a 100 pip window, what does that tell you? That tells you that your target can be anywhere at the extreme or anywhere within this. Now, this is all going to determine based on the way I trade, based on your entry. Because if we're going back to this kind of stuff and we're saying our stop loss is going to be up here, right? Then where's the entry going to be? If your entry is up here closer, then this becomes the risk, okay? If your entry becomes lower, then now the risk becomes bigger. Now you need more of a reward. Okay, now you need to get closer to this area to basically enter the trade. But the fact of the matter is, this is why I will say it over and over again, this is why your entry is significant. You have to understand that. Now, price did all this stuff, shot down in a couple of hours in the evening, and then for me here in the UK anyway, it'll probably be early afternoon for those of you in America, tucked up in bed for those of you in Australia, or maybe just getting out of bed. So you can see all of this stuff. Price shot down all the way, provided this would be a less likely scenario, but we talk about this all the time about profit taking. So this candle, although it's not green, it's a huge candle, it's a huge tail, sorry. So that means obviously there was a buying momentum into it. Then we see buyers, then we see more tails. Okay, this was the profit taking. It wasn't extreme. Okay, it wasn't green before it basically shot down. Let's do this for the final leg, before basically saying, nope, we're not going below 122. Israel's got this number completely accurate around this particular region, and we're going to basically continue to move up and see what happens next. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, this is an opportunity. Okay, one opportunity this week you could have potentially had. This would be 2 opportunities. All of this stuff, okay, for the record, is all based off what we do on the weekend. I'm trying to get you to understand, for those of you who are taking me seriously and actually watching this stuff on a day-to-day basis, watching this stuff on the weekend, that you can do a lot of this stuff like when anyone's got free time. Okay, most people, even if you work 9 to 5, and even the way things are going today, in a sense that we're talking about basically being people getting forced to stay home and work from home, right? You've got the opportunity. There's no commute time. There's nothing like that. You can basically get ready in your own time and basically make this work, right? So all of this stuff that's happening right now has no bearing, because we were talking about this yesterday, and we're talking about an opportunity. So let's even look at this first and foremost, actually, in a lower time frame, because we've highlighted the area was highlighted already anyway. But let's basically look at some potential, like let's look at what it looks like, basically at the time, right? So you can see here, this was the area. This was the first time price went into the area, right? Just after yesterday's live stream. This in itself, I wouldn't have been surprised if any of you came today and said you were basically taking the trade, etc. Now, from there, even if price came like this and came back, okay, your stop loss would have obviously still had to have been higher based on the previous price action from earlier in the day, right? Then even this was even better. This scenario here is even better because it even came into the area, lots of tails on the upside, sideways action, and it provides you with a great opportunity to basically put on, remember this, okay, minimal risk, maximum 2% with a reward of at least 3 times. Okay, so the way I do it, and this guess is a great place for me to say, look, this is my personal opinion, not financial advice, but I always go for 3 times. Okay, at least. Let me do the plus sign even twice. That's how much of a significance it is to me. Okay, you want to get minimal risk, but you want to maximize the potential reward, but you want to do it realistically. This is why we look at the higher time frames and we do the things we're talking about, because that's how you can basically get the minimal risk. But because we're doing analysis on the higher time frames and we look at where the market's going, that's how we can get the potential reward. So we was talking about this yesterday. This is potentially like a 20 to 25 pip stop loss, right? But how much was the target all the way down? The bottom of the move was 100. So you're talking about there's space for at least 5, okay, to 1 risk to reward, or even just a little bit smaller, which would be 4 to 5 to 1 risk to reward. Okay, R to R, for the technical people out there. Okay, risk to reward. That basically means I'm risking 1 to basically make 5, or I'm risking 1 to potentially make 4 times, okay, and stuff like that. And this is what you have to basically get comfortable at doing. Okay, mixing up my words there. So this was a good example. We've talked about this over and over again in regards to just basically daily charts, 4-hour charts, 1-hour charts, 15 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever extremely low time frame you're looking at. The fact of the matter is, this is how you piece them all together, right? And this is how you make these smart decisions. So what's basically happening now? So price has broken through, okay, since yesterday, this region. Now, even this, for example, if you want, you can basically do numbers on it and you can basically see and say, okay, cool. Would this have made sense? Because basically price came through, and for sellers, you'd be questioning, okay, is this a false breakout? Is this just the market trying to act like it's going to go, but then literally move down? You'd have to basically then do the numbers and say, okay, does this make sense as a potential opportunity? Something like this. Typically, the way cable is moving these days, you're looking at a lot of the time a 20 pip stop loss. You're looking at 9, okay, cool. If Israel's going to take this trade, he needs to get how much? At least 50, at least 3 times, right? So we're talking about potentially 60. Excuse me. And from that scenario, I talked about this in yesterday's live stream. You can get trade direction bias, right? Where's the market going long term? You basically get an area. Where's the top? Since we're looking for a sell position on this. Okay, so now we know where the potential top is. Potential, obviously. Where's the stop loss going to go? Obviously just above. Now we look at, okay, cool, where's our target going to go? Now the final thing is, within the whole entry is, does this area make sense? does the risk to reward make sense? This is the final thing that matters. If the risk to reward makes sense in regards to the entry, then you can potentially take it. Okay, but this is something for you to consider. And let's say, for example, you even take this trade and the numbers don't even add up, right? So you take a 20 pip stop loss on this, and you're looking for, so it'd be about 122.30ish, probably about 45ish, 15. You're looking for 45 pips thereabouts. So you're looking at about 75ish. Okay, price dropped down to about 80. Okay, just before 80. So it would have been tight. But let's say if this is even a loss, one of these covers how many of these? Okay, if this is 4 times to 1 or 5 times to 1, and this is 1, how many of these can you basically take and afford to be wrong with? You can take 4 or 5, right? Depending on how much you basically got in this particular region. Now, the fact of the matter is, that's 4 or 5 to what? Break even. That's not even you losing money yet. We're just back to the start. This is why trading like this is extremely powerful, because it puts you in a position where you don't have to be right too often. You can basically work this out a little bit, step by step, take trades here and there, and make things even better. Let's say, for example, you're not that confident, so you're taking 3 to 1, right? So you don't go for 4 to 1 or 5 to 1, you go for 3 to 1. That still gives you 3 opportunities to basically get this right or to get this wrong, to play with. So these are the kind of things you have to think about when it comes to basically trading the Forex markets. These are the kind of opportunities that you basically get on a daily basis. You'll see these kind of things, even though the market's going back. Same thing we looked at on some of the other currencies, right? Yesterday I was talking about being patient. Considering I was highlighting profusely in this area, even if price continues to drop now, we're still going to have this area in mind, especially more so now that it's even stuck more so, okay, and bounced off this particular region. And if any of this stuff doesn't really make sense, go back to our previous live streams. If you want to know more about the strategy, there's an on-demand workshop of ours that you can watch anytime. It's in the description box. It will show you more so specifically what we're doing here in regards to breaking down the Forex markets, and it will show you exactly like how to trade the Forex markets the way I'm doing it for free. So just understand that, okay? There is an offer in the end of that training, but I say that at the beginning of the training anyway. And pretty much what I talk about in the on-demand training basically tells you everything I'm doing anyway. So it's not like you're paying to get more information, like I'm hiding something from you. I'm actually just going to give you more of myself, more of my time, and those kind of things to actually help you. So just bear that in mind, okay? So all we're looking at now is saying, okay, cool, let's focus on this kind of area right here. This is 124, right? 123.80. Let's see what happens. We can do this. Let's take all of this off. This is potential, right? So all we're going to do is something like this, and we're basically going to watch. That's it. Why are we doing that? Because we think that the market, we want to see what the market's basically going to do in that particular region, right? We want to see if the market's basically going to come into this region. Let's move this over a little bit. It's even a bit higher, to be honest. Let's move it down a little bit. Just a little bit up. What we're doing, we're looking to the left. This was a huge sell-off. Price sold off hugely from this particular region last time, right? So all we're doing is looking to see, is price going to do the exact same thing today? Is it going to do the exact same thing tomorrow? It could potentially just do that and keep going, okay? The more and more it does this, the more likely is that price isn't trying to move down, and this area right here is just proved too strong, and the buyers at this particular region have said, no, we're not going to continue, for at least for now, continuing with the overall momentum down. We're going to push this up a little bit further. And maybe, for example, we talked about this, I believe it was maybe 2 weeks ago, we talked about how Boris Johnson, I think the title was, tried to crash the pound against the dollar. Go back and watch it if you want. What I was going to say is perhaps the news later on about Boris Johnson may come out and it may be worse than the sources have been telling us. Who knows? Okay, we talked about this as well. There's a funny way, the way the market fundamentally and technically works together, and it'll make you be thinking certain things are happening when certain things actually aren't happening. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so let's just see potential 123.80, 124 round number. Okay, for the round number lovers out there, round numbers generally tend to be key areas of where price does like to respect those kind of areas. But this was a huge sell-off last time. Okay, this is where price sold off into this particular region before, the 122.20. So it's 180 pip drop, right? So don't be surprised if price comes into this particular region again. This is a 20 pip region, right? 20 pip area. If we go down to lower time frames, lower than a 1 hour, 15 minute, 5 minutes, 3 minutes for entry only. Okay, not for analysis. We just have to basically see what happens. So if we are looking at this as a potential top, right? This is the last time price shot down quite heavily from this particular region, and we're saying, okay, cool, if we take a trade, there's a stop loss going to go potentially above it. That may be like somewhere like here. If there's some sideways action in here, that might give us even a tighter than the 20 pip. You might be looking at a 15. Okay, you might be looking at a 10 pip stop loss. You never know. But these are the kind of things you have to factor in and consider when it comes to actually analyzing the market. So we're basically going to jump into another currency right now, and we'll just keep an eye on this one and basically see what's basically happening. Let's look at it. Leave it on a 15 minute. Okay, this looks interesting. What I would, well, let's leave it like that anyway. All right, so let's look at another currency. Let's see. And another thing I have to say as well, I didn't mention this, but I will say this is, you have to remember that at the same time, okay, the fundamental fact is, make sure you check the economic calendar. You check forexfactory.com, whatever market it is that you and check the scheduled data, not only the live newsfeed data, but you check all of this stuff and see exactly what's happening. Okay, so just factor that in as well. Let's get into the USDJPY here and see exactly basically what's been happening. Okay, so you should be able to see the USDJPY right now, and again, this is one we've been looking at from a bullish perspective. This is a buyer's perspective, right? We're talking about this market potentially going up, and so far this week, let me just take a drink of water and we'll basically get into it from a closer detail. Right, so far this week on the USDJPY, we've been anticipating the market going up. Again, this goes back to our weekend live stream. It's in the description box for you to watch after this live stream. And basically, I believe it was it yesterday, we basically put this particular area on and we said, okay, cool, we want to see what this market's actually doing in this particular region. Okay, now the fact of the matter is, I already kind of like, remember, just going back to the title of the video today, how live forex analysis, how to make 50 pips in one day. That one particular trade from the pound against the dollar was over 50 pips. That was the 100 pip potential, and we talked about in advance. It basically set up and provided more than 50 pips. Okay, so don't think like I'm not into scalping, although that's how I kind of like started as a trader with scalping. That's not literally what like suits my nature as a person. Okay, the characteristics that my characteristical makeup. Okay, so what I basically do is I'm more likely to look at charts and have a bit more time to make decisions, to process certain things, and to just feel good about myself in that way. Okay, so we looked at this and we said, okay, cool, price is actually moving up. You can see the trend line we actually drew on. Excuse me, an imperfect trend line as well, for the record. Excuse me, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just put it on. It's not like price is actually going to obey it. And I saw later on in the day how price was basically came here and basically pushed up but didn't go any higher. So that was of interest to me as well. But the fact of the matter is, you can see later on it broke through it. Now that wasn't a big concern to me because I had put this area on. So I'm looking to see if price is going to basically come here before basically some sideways action before potentially moving up, right? So this is the 1 hour view. If we go down before going up, we can see from a 4-hour view just how much potential. We talked about the 111.60 region, right? This is where price could potentially get to in short order if it continues this overall upwards momentum. Okay, so this is the trend line here that we drew previously, okay, yesterday, but also know that there's a bigger move higher. Okay, so just understand that. So as we go to a daily, just so you can see now these two things combined, you can see, look what's been happening here. Let's do this. Let's take all of this stuff off. Go to the daily. And you can see, look, this is all off the back of a huge upwards velocity, and price has consolidated, and this price looks like it wants to continue and try and test it again. So we're looking for long positions on the USDJPY. Let's go down and see this even in better context. Let's look at a 15-minute. Okay, and you can see exactly what price is doing. So the funny thing about this is, look what price did. Let me move this over. Okay. If you look at what's happening, let me zoom out a little bit so you can definitely see this, right? Look at what price did here. Price came into the region. Okay. Look at the time. The 7th of April, right? What time is it? 3 a.m. Okay. That's number one. Okay. Tails on the downside. That's not an issue. If you go back to yesterday's live stream, I talked about this. I said the one thing about this that's a bit iffy for me is this right here. That it's a tail that is down here. That suggests to you that the price could push through this particular region, even though it's going to come back, right? Because this is how this price is suggested to us. Even though there's consolidation sideways before moving up, and it's come back down, there's a tail, right? But this tail is something you have to take into consideration. And then price consolidated, tried to move up, etc. So price came in here. Let's take some of this stuff off. Okay. Tail, that was one. Price tried to bounce a second time. That was two. Okay. One. It's two. It even done it twice, so you can say three. Now look at this. Another one. Okay. 4. Look at the time right here. 6 a.m., right? So that's 3 times technically, 4 times technically, but 3 times at least it hit this area. So what did it say every single time? No. We are not going lower. We want to go higher, right? Then we see this. That's 4 times, right? No, we do not want to go lower. Well, it's 5 times technically, since I put 4 before. Now, this by itself, right? This by itself may not be enough, because at the end of the day, like, you don't just take this stuff into consideration. You take this stuff into consideration. You take the overall long-term momentum, which is up, into consideration. This is what we're doing on the weekend, right? And then when something like this happens, you have to tell yourself, you have to ask yourself this question. My long-term, let's go through the procedures again. Do we have long-term bias up? Yes, we do. Do we have a potential bottom? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No matter where it is, wherever it is that you're looking at this, do we have this? Yes, we have a potential bottom. So what does that tell us? That tells us that a stop loss likely, okay, if we're going to get into this particular trade, let me do this, is going to go somewhere around here, right? Somewhere there, right? Then what else does that tell us? Where's the entry going to go? Do we have an entry potential? Entry potential depends. Do we get in here? Do we get in here? Do we get in here, etc.? Where do we get in? Then what we basically say is the last thing we have to ascertain if all of this stuff has made sense, and everything has made sense so far, right? Does the numbers make sense? Let's see. All right. So if our stop loss, let's move this over a little bit so you can see price in real time, what it's actually doing. So if our stop loss is in this particular region, our entry okay, what we're looking at here is what? So let me take all of this stuff off. We're looking at 15 pips potential. So what do we need? We need this risk to reward ratio, right, to turn to 3 at least. Because if we're risking 1, okay, which would be the stop loss area, we need at least 3, right? At least 3 times. So we look at this and we say, okay, cool. We need this number to go to 3. Where's 3? We move it up. Let's watch the number. Three is right here, right? This is 3, about 45 pips. So we now look at this and we say, okay, cool. Does this market have 45 pips in it? Well, the market is generally moving up. That's one thing. And we can see even subsequently, which wouldn't even matter in real time, so you know, let's disregard it. Let's look to the left. If we're looking to enter a market somewhere here, right, with a stop loss somewhere down here, focusing on the bottoms, we have to look left and say, okay, cool. Can the market get to it? Well, this is where the price got to earlier. And even earlier in the day, price even topped out even higher, just above 109.30, right? So any trade you would take on this particular opportunity, in my opinion, if I'm taking a trade, my trade would likely have to be closed before this particular region. Now, this is where your entry comes into it. And this is what we've talked about days and days and days over. If your entry is good, okay, then this becomes a lot more feasible. If it's bad, now it starts to become a lot more risky, and it's like, okay, cool. Like what do we know? Do we know it's good, if it's going to work or not? Yes or no? And the fact of the matter is, the question you have to ask yourself, if all of these things have played out, you have to ask yourself, if everything is played out in your trading plan, whether you're trying to do things the way I kind of do things, whether you're doing something however you want to do things, the question you have to ask yourself is, everything is panned out and everything is perfect. The question you have to ask yourself is, okay, cool. What is stopping me from getting into this trade? And the fact of the matter is, the only thing that would be stopping you from entering this trade is fear. That means one of two things. That either means, one, you're risking too much money, which if you're really seriously taking what I'm saying into consideration, you wouldn't be doing that. Or number two, you're just afraid to lose. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you're doing number one right, number two should be less likely, but it doesn't completely absolve it in all situations. This is where you need to start focusing more on this and less on this. Because if you've done number one right, the risk shouldn't hurt you in the bigger scheme of things. Okay. The potential reward should be of more interest to you, more exciting to you. And you should be saying, well, you're telling me I could potentially just risk just this little bit for all of this. Yeah. So at that point, you have to say to yourself, okay, cool. Like, I'm willing to do that. And this is why we talked about 3-to-1s, 4-to-1s, 5-to-1s, all these kind of things. Today, we talked about in previous live stream. This is where you may say, you know what, I'm only going to go for 3-to-1, right? But the fact of the matter is, this morning I was awake, I was alert. I said yes to all of these different things. So what did I have to do? I said I have to take a trade. I bought this, okay? And I think my number was about 82, to be honest. With a stop loss about 68, 69-ish. And my target is actually I believe it's 22, 23, something along those lines. So even look at what's happened so far. So price pushed up first time, didn't quite get to the region, right? Came back down into the same area. Now the fact of the matter is, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, price could push back up, price could move down. You have to be confident in any scenario. The fact of the matter is, if it loses, then it's like, okay, cool, this is why we risk more, right? If it wins, then this is all the potential. And it's just that simple. But the fact of the matter is, you have to get to a point where you just take a trade and you live with the results. It's just that simple. Now, we're not even, from my perspective, we're not even talking about just taking a trade and live with the results. I'm talking about it publicly. So at the end of the day, it's like, I know at the end of the day, there's people that are watching this and be like, oh, like, he took this trade. Like, so I know there's some crazy people out there like that are weird like that. I'll be hoping you lose and all that kind of stuff. I know there's people like that, we're hoping you win. But regardless, this is one trade in the bigger scheme of things, in the ether, some people would say, of multiple different trades. Okay, so it doesn't even matter. But let's look at even a lower time frame to look at this even in more detail, right? Because you'll be able to see this in better context. So you can see specifically, let's move over just a little bit to this morning. Loads of people were tucked up in bed at this time, and that's fine. The markets, you can trade any time of the day. They've got a link in the description box to the best time frames to trade. We've also done a video. If you go back on our channel, if you go to our actual channel page, it's actually the video there. That's like our trailer. Funny enough, my daughter was talking about a video today. She was saying she was watching it. But the fact of the matter is, that talks about the best times a day to trade. Okay, and it just shows you how you can make money at all different times. But look at this. Okay, forget about everything else that's happening now. That's irrelevant, because that is not something you can see in real time. So just bear that in mind. You'd be looking at this saying, okay, cool, like, does this all make sense? Like, can I get an entry on? That makes sense. Can I get reward on? That makes sense. And it's not something you do all day where you're just watching it every day. You just look at it and see what's happening. Okay, it's just that simple. Now, even yesterday someone talked about this, maybe I won't bring it up now, but the fact of the matter is, all you do is you just look at what the market's doing, and there's no reason why you'd be looking at this market. The market would be like this, all right? It'd be something like this. And you'd be saying to yourself, okay, cool. Does this make sense to take a buy position? Can I see this market moving up? Some people say no and they won't trade it. Some people say yes and they will trade it. It's just that simple. And based on whatever happens, you either win or you lose, but you can never win if you're not in the market. And that's the fundamental thing you need to realize when it comes to basically trading these currencies. Okay, you have to basically be prepared. So be able to live with any kind of result. It doesn't even matter whether you win or whether you lose. I have no problem talking about winning trades, losing trades. It's all a learning experience anyway. But the fact of the matter is, this is how you identify a market long term. This is how you identify it in real time, and you basically take a trade based on those situations. Let's see what happens. The funniest thing is, if we talked about some of the other currencies already today, and some of like the dollar weakness so far in today's currency, we're now entering the American session. Let's just see if that continues or if it basically reverses. But the fact of the matter is, again, like I said, you have to be willing to live with any result, and it's not something that you have to be watching all day. You take a trade, your stop losses there, your take profits there. You can go away and do other things, go about your business, do other things in life. You come back later on, you see, did I win, did I lose, or am I still in the trade? It doesn't matter. Okay, up until now, I didn't even looked at this until previously. Okay, it's just that simple. So just take that into consideration. Let's look at, what haven't we looked at? Let's look at the AUD USD. I want to talk about this quite a bit, because this one, okay, I think I'm pretty, let me just do this first. Let's look at the daily, right? And earlier on, I was looking at this and I was saying to myself, okay, cool. More so than other currencies out there, this one particularly looks like this one may be doing the complete opposite and may continue. So I was looking at this area right here and I was saying, okay, cool. If price gets to this region, then it might likely be that price wants to continue moving up. Okay, and this isn't moving down this week. Okay, fine. It's pretty much the second real day of the trading week. If price isn't going to move down, cool. But like I said, I talked about this previously in a live stream. The book Who Moved My Cheese, you can get it for free in the description box with a free trial. Audible, cancel the free trial, you still get the book. But understand that it tells you, it teaches you just not to like get caught up in one like decision, one scenario. Things can change, so just bear that in mind. You have to be ready to change, etc. So we highlighted this. This is, let's go to, anyway, let me just, you can see it here anyway. This area right here, okay, it's a 1 hour view going back to the end of last month, is really significant. Okay, if price decides not to do this, if price even doesn't do this, then it may be, okay, that price does want to go. So you have to first be mindful of what price does in the region. Okay, 62 pretty much. But you also need to be mindful of, does it try and do a false breakout? Try and act like it's going to break out to the top side and then basically try and move down. But if price pushes through here and doesn't do anything different, then most likely when I come back to trade this week on a Thursday, okay, God willing, that's what I'll be basically potentially looking to do. This is a 15-minute. You can see price is generally moving up in a very trending fashion. The one kind of like outlier to this is, for the most part, the dollar has been weak across the board. And because it's been weak across the board, that's another reason why price may be going against the dollar across lots of these different pairs. So just bear that in mind. So we've looked at some different currencies. It's been going for about an hour. I'll probably wrap it up here, okay, and just say thanks for everyone tuning into the live stream. I'll see you on Thursday, God willing, with a new live stream. There may be a video out today about a very good Forex tool you can use for free, okay, to help with your Forex trading. If that's going to be the case, it's going to be coming out tonight, probably about 11 p.m. So that's going to be about 5-6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so when that video comes out, either tonight or maybe in a couple of days, you see that video, hit the thumbs up button, the like button if you like what we talked about today, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks and take care.